our next question.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've talked about a lot of this, and then we want to get into this literature review. So the literature review is not an annotated bibliography or a mere summary of the relevant research. Instead, it's a section that demonstrates you've done the relevant reading and research and made sense of that external research. And again, the reason that we want to talk about both the literature review and the methodology in a little bit greater detail is in part because these are the areas that students struggle with the most. And I'll jump into Wise Writer by the time we get to the end to kind of show you in practice how we can create a literature review that's going to answer the kinds of questions that scholars are looking for. But what a literature review is, broadly speaking, is this is the opportunity for you as a scholar to show that you've done your reading. But to show that you've done your reading and the reading has come in, you've interpreted it and produced it in a way that it speaks to your problem statement. So again, if we go back here, you've got the clear topic statement, relevant historical, geographical, technical background, all of that. And then a literature review is a survey of the related scholarship. So it's got to be related to your problem statement. So if your problem statement is, this is what I'm going to argue, my literature review is, and here's what other people have said about this particular topic. Here's what the scholarship out there in the field seems to be saying. So one way that you can organize your literature review is to create different camps in the scholarship. So sometimes that's a good heuristic where you may say, okay, on the one, and even before you start writing, you can have kind of your charts, and you can do this by paper, you can do this on spreadsheets, where you're basically saying, okay, there's this view, and then you list all of the things that you've read that are under view X. Then you might say, okay, well, there's also view Y, which is the opposite of X. And then you can list all of the ones under view Y. Then when it comes to you creating your literature review, you may say that generally speaking, there are two camps in the scholarship. One camp believes X, for example, and then you start to talk about those other scholars and how their writing is evidence of their belief in X. And then you get to the sort of end of that portion and go, on the other hand, there's another camp that believes Y. Y is, and you say what that belief broadly speaking is, and then you can go through the scholarship that you've found that falls into category Y and say, okay, here's what some of the scholars have to say about Y. Then you may discover that in your reading of all of the topics in the field, there are some things and they're neither X and they're neither Y. They don't fall into that. They're kind of outliers. So then at that part of your literature review, you'd be able to say, and there's some scholarship which takes a unique view. For example, and then you go through the scholarship that you found that doesn't neatly fall into one of the pre-existing buckets. So what you've done in that kind of structure is that you've not only showed, hey, I've done my research, but you've shown your own ability to interpret and categorize the research and data in a way that is your own. Because ultimately, this literature review part isn't just showing your committee or your supervisor like, hey, I've done the reading. Nobody wants to read a list of summary of other research. What we want to read is something that gives us evidence that you've read the scholarship and you can speak intelligently about how that scholarship relates to the field as a whole and your research in particular.
Exactly. So that's where all the different things need to be included.